Okay, I think I am that. Yeah, let's get to the main screen. You know what? Yeah, I'll keep it on here for a bit. Or at least until I actually think of what the promo shows back there. Really have been neglecting doing that. Mainly because I was often busy streaming, though also for classified reasons. Yeah, as in my organization won't let me disclose what that is. The freaking buzzkills. Well, regardless. For this model, I'm probably going to start with a simple full body using PNG Tube Remix. Might turn it into a vtuber model later on, since apparently vtuber has motion tracking. You know, not the mini version, since mini is still just basic PNG tube stuff, but okay, so anyways, as for what else is on today's agenda, I got a couple of videos I could probably react to. The first one is Magic Mush's video on the catastrophic conventions of the century that aren't DashCon. Since, let's be real here, everyone spoke about DashCon. I was there when it happened, so I think I know the full story about that. There's plenty of documentaries if you guys want to check out that full story, since, I mean, let's be real. Who hasn't told the story of DashCon? Anyways. Let us get to... Oh, hold on, the Beers Axel chat isn't working right now. Let me go ahead and see if I can get that fixed real quick. Okay, let's see. There we go. It seems like everything has to have an update tonight. Anyways. Enough lollygagging, let's start with the... Next. Let's start with the art and the reaction. Yeah, right, as soon as I pull up my ref that I should have had before I started the whole thing. I remember to get that once I get to editing it. I probably won't. Okay, now we can start.
This video is sponsored by Aura. There once was a website called Tumblr. Tumblr was a social media
it's
website
still
that
up.
absolutely exploded in popularity in the early 2010s. It became a hub for a bunch of communities and cultures to come together and share their love for.
Actually, hold on. Forgot one more thing. Forgot to wear my headphones. Yeah, that way the audio doesn't pick up through my mic. Really annoying.
All types of things. Very quickly, Tumblr became its very own aesthetic. It's hard to explain, but when you spotted something and labeled it as Tumblr, pretty much everyone knew what you were talking about. There is a lot.
Well, it was also called CalArt style, but yeah, apparently that also just kind of stopped getting used after a while. Right. Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, I don't think I ever this on profile, but I got a new tablet recently. Gonna take a long time to get used to.
A lot of medium fandoms out there that have their roots in being very Tumblr-ish, and when you know, you know. Tumblr was a juggernaut in the early 2010s, so much so that at one point, a few people decided it was time to go big, and they decided to make their own unofficial Tumblr convention, and it was called DashCon. Too long didn't read, it was a disaster.
To say the
you've
least.
probably heard the story a dozen times by now. There's a documentary on it, and there's nothing I can add. DashCon is probably the de facto example of a con gone wrong.
Yeah, and I was there when it unraveled. Bands canceled, the ball pit, all that jazz.
Cancelled events, low attendance, people nearly getting kicked out the venue, the ball pit, you've heard it all. It was a huge stain on Tumblr's public reception, and it'll never remove that stain. It will forever be remembered as one of, if not, the worst convention of all time. Every other...
Honestly, I think the porn ban ultimately hurt more than the DashCon incident. Yeah, it was a pretty huge shit show, ultimately.
Bad con will be held to the standard of DashCon. So, why am I bringing it up today? Well, that will be because its 10th year anniversary is upon us. DashCon is 10
That's an
years
interesting
old.
bit of trivia.
A decade has passed. All those years of ball pit memes is now a footnote in 2010's internet culture. You're 10 years older now. The wall is coming for us all. Due to the 10th year anniversary, I've decided I need to cash in. DashCon wasn't...
Also, Trump is on his second presidency, and yeah, you get the picture.
the only catastrophic convention. There are plenty of others out there, and I've decided we're going to talk about those. Everything but DashCon is on the table, because what can I really add to the DashCon conversation? There's a slew of fandoms and cultures I can look at for this, so why don't you all sit down and tune in. We're going to have a gay old time. Welcome to... But first, Daddy Mush needs his paper.
Okay, you all know the
This video
rules.
is sponsored by Aura.
Let
Unlike
the
all
ads
these conventions
play.
giving off negative auras, Aura is here to give you nothing but good vibes. Yeah, that zinger had a hook. In the age of the internet, it is now easier than ever for anyone to get a hold of your personal data. Even if you never share a smidge of your personal life online, data leaks and breaches for websites and services you sign up for happen all the time, and they can get out just like that. Now, if someone knows how, they can find you easy. There's a reason why you get so many spam emails and get calls from mysterious numbers. They've gotten a hold of your info. And what do these companies like Ticketmaster do about it? Nothing. They just let it happen. And what you need to mitigate something like
To
this
say the
is
least.
Aura. Aura can notify you if your data is leaked, and it can protect you if anyone attempts to get a hold of your data. Not only that, but it has a host of different features. It's a VPN, it's an antivirus, it's a password manager, it's an all-in-one app, and for an affordable price. Aura is on all the time, and it can help you, and many others, keep your data safe in this internet-dependent era. You can go to aura.com/magicmush and try for yourself for 2 weeks for completely free, and also link below in the description. Go try it yourself and see if any of your data is out there. Aura can protect mine and your data, but it can't protect me from my duty. So let's get back to the video.
Okay, back to it. Starting off strong with a brony convention.
My little pony, my little pony.
Yes, you all probably know about Friendship is Magic by now. It was a monstrously popular show in the early 2010s. It became a phenomenon with a huge fan base of more than just little girls. I don't think I need to tell you much else. Friendship is Magic was a huge...
Okay, I don't know how I'm gonna tell this story again, but I honestly kind of thank the MLP fandom for actually encouraging me to actually start drawing. Let's see. More specifically, there was this one ancient meme comic that ultimately kind of kickstarted a lot of that in my brain. Gonna see if I can find it, actually. A really ancient comic, so I don't know if I still have it. Okay. Ah, there it is. Ah, damn, it's from 2011. Ish. Okay, but yeah, this comic kickstarted me to become an artist. I am not making this up. Yeah, pre 2014 internet was magical time. Cringe like this could actually influence you to do a lot of stuff. And a simple meme could actually encourage a whole lot of stuff. But yes, back to the video.
huge internet culture juggernaut in the early 2010s. Like, you could not escape pony shit, no matter how hard you tried. Somewhere...
Yeah, and it also caused a subculture of horse fame, with a few of them being outed for really terrible shit, and also spawning some really terrible commentators like Leo Convoy and I Love Impossible a lot. Yeah, we're not gonna venture down those rabbit holes tonight, thankfully.
Someone out there, on any website, would have a pony as their avatar, or post a meme involving ponies. I am not joking when I say it was literally impossible to avoid this show. My personal first exposure to it was one day I randomly got a video on my suggested videos about saving derpy hooves, and I was like, who the fuck is derpy hooves? I had no idea.
Background character. Yeah, I'm not kidding. This one pony was simply a background gag that just gained a lot of attention. Early internet, man.
what world I was stepping into looking at that video. But this show's popularity was now great news for people who like money. Now they can sell these toys to not only little girls, but also grown adults too, who will now buy them and then stick them in jars for nefarious purposes. There were also a number of conventions made, like BronyCon, which was by far the most popular.
Note, do not ask for context for that joke. I know the context for that joke. You do not want to know about it.
Popular one, and it was only a matter of time before some schmuck came along and tried to tap into the new market. And thus, Las Pegasus Unicon was born, held in February of 2013 in Las Vegas, so it actually predates DashCon. But people don't really talk about the disaster of this con nearly as much, probably because it would only appeal to bronies and Friendship is Magic fans, which I am neither of, but hey, it still makes for a funny story. Las Pegasus Unicon was hosted inside the Hotel Riviera, a very old and very well-known hotel in Vegas, which was on its deathbed around 2013, so no doubt Unicon probably got a good deal to host their con there. It was set to be a huge convention. Over 2,000 people were expected to attend, writers and directors from the show, the voice actors were expected to show up, e-celebs, artists, vendors, everything you could ever want from a My Little Pony convention. You could even have dinner with all the special guests. There was a ton of hype and advertising about this con.
Hey there, cats and kittens, listen up. February 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, every network's gonna have live coverage of Los Pegasus Unicon. Hosted by that mook Joe Stevens and me, your very own Big Papa Moose of the Equestrian Inquirer.
And when we look at their website, even on the front page, it says, "Chaos will be landing." Well, they were right about that.
Foreshadowing is a literary
Sign up for the
device.
convention, sign up for the celebrity dinner like the simp you are, and you fly over to Las Vegas. Grab your laminated badge that took way too long to make. You walk in the hotel and already the vibes are off. It's mysteriously empty for a convention that was supposed to have 2,000 people. And from that point forward, everything starts to fall into place to make for one hell of a disastrous convention. There is a distinct lack of staff or anyone that looks like they know what's going on. Picking up one of the brochures, made out of the cheapest paper humanly possible, you can see all the different events that were going to go on here, and there was some controversy involving said pamphlets because a lot of bronies paid good money to advertise their stuff in these pamphlets, and these adverts only showed up on the pamphlets for the people who showed up day one. And there were hardly any more produced.
The only people who have this are the people who came in.
Yeah, it's almost as if this thing was a scam or something. Okay, yeah, I know I kind of spoiled the punchline, but it's a fucking decade old. Actually, scratch that. It's over a decade old.
First day, and we're lucky enough to get it. This is for the people who have paid good money, really good money, to advertise in a convention that flopped.
It's the little things that start to build up, but it gets worse from here. The vendors are expecting a way bigger turnaround than what actually showed up, so a good chunk of them are taking a loss on actually coming here, especially when they're not getting paid extra money, but instead, monopoly books with ponies called bits, instead of actual cash. Listen, the whole pony crap isn't cute anymore when you start taking my money and replacing it with this crap. They're about as useful as Twitch bits. Many of the celebrities and special guests were left stranded at the airport, and it took forever for anyone to actually come pick them up. Tensions were already rising, and then by the very next day of the con, all hell starts to break loose. The next day got you more panels than a concert. A voice actor panel happened, but during said voice actor panel, a fire alarm was pulled, but there was no fire actually happening. It's been speculated it was either a prank or a staff member accidentally going out a fire exit. There was also that greatly coveted dinner with all the special guests, with your choice of 3 dinners, and they gave Tara Strong, you know, the main actress of the show, the dish with eggplant on it, and she's allergic to eggplant. Luckily, she was able to catch it before he actually ate it. Imagine nearly killing the main character's voice actress at the convention made to celebrate the show, and by extension, her performance. If you thought that was bad.
Oh, yeah. At least that was an accident. I knew some motherfucker who tried to give some guy a cookie full of needles just because they disagreed with their ship. Voltron fandom was cutthroat, man.
Convention goers later found out something massive. It was found out that the convention was not actually holding off their end of the bargain and wasn't paying the hotel or the special guests or for the special guest hotel rooms or anything. They paid none of that. So the hotel, on the cusp of bankruptcy and flailing around like a beast close to death, starts charging the attendees upwards of $1,000. And I don't think most of them have that lying around. The little bit of money they had made at the convention, oh wait, that's right, they didn't make any actual money. They have monopoly money that is completely useless, and the staff who were supposed to give them real money were gone. You have hundreds of bronies and celebrities, potentially now stuck in Las Vegas, and are now being charged with something they never knew they were going to be charged for. With the budget of a tuna fish sandwich, the con had no money, the fans had no money, and a desperate plea to get more, the fans and the special guests started a campaign to raise money to pay for everyone's trip back home. Hashtag Las Pegasus went live, and with enough of a push online, they were able to get enough money raised to pay off all the expenses needed. Now where have I heard this story before? By day 3, everything was in shambles. Everyone in the convention was basically forced out the building and to take everything they owned as fast as possible or else it becomes hotel property. Even with its dying breath, the house always wins.
Yeah, I honestly think that this incident was worse than DashCon's. At least DashCon, you could legitimately say the planners were just completely fucking stupid. These guys were maliciously trying scamming people. Eh.
The convention was a complete and utter bust, but everything was able to work out in the end. But after this, rumors and theories start flying about how did everything turn out like this? The more forgiving people have said it was just a poorly managed convention, but the more skeptical have dug deep into it and accused it of being a flat-out scam made to just bank on a vastly growing community. And there is a lot to back this up with. It mostly comes down to the creators of the convention, who, during the midst of it falling apart, fled the scene. They were nowhere to be found when everybody got kicked out. Nobody knows exactly when they left, but they did run away from their responsibility. Many believe that they were the ones to pull the fire alarm so they could flee in the commotion, or even that they were the ones to have given Tara Strong the implant she was allergic to, purposely poisoning the main character's actress, which would cause enough of a scene for them to sneak away with the cash, but that one's a little far-fetched. What we do know...
Yeah, those theories just kinda sound a bit too conspiratorial to actually buy, in all honesty. I think they just fled and that's it. Not like it was really that hard to do.
Is that they told the hotel to start charging the guests for their own rooms so they would avoid their responsibility. Their last trace online was posting a half-assed apology on the website.
We're sorry.
And after that, nobody knows. People have also dug into the couple's past and found out they have a history of using multiple names and doing shady and illegal business practices. Everything seems to point to this convention just being a huge scam. Even months after the fact, all the special guests had not been paid for their work going to the con. It actually scared a lot of them from ever going to a Brony convention ever again. It was that bad. But as the years rolled on, the fandom grew bigger and bigger, more conventions for bronies would come and go, a lot were significantly better than this. It's now just seen as a travesty, and probably the worst thing to happen to the Friendship is Magic fandom, well, until the show got cancelled.
Or G5. Take your pick. I don't know, I just kind of jumped ship during season 5, so...
Atmosphere.
I don't mean to toot my own horn, but I am sometimes shocked at the reach I have as a content creator. In reality, I'm just some guy who works on videos in his bedroom with nothing else going on. But hey, I'm glad some people get enjoyment out of me.
They'll erect a statue
Oh, hey, ambushing. Glad to have you here. Message. Okay.
In honor of me, a monument to symbolize my bravery.
But, yeah. I honestly don't blame you for being surprised, but you are pretty entertaining, so... Not that hard to believe.
That being said, no matter how big and popular I might get, it would never cross my mind to try making a convention. I don't care if I get 10 million subs overnight. I don't even want to think about how that would turn out. Imagine the smell. But when you get any sort of fame online, there comes the inevitability of an ego, and that could lead to cases like TanaCon. TanaCon was a convention held by the popular YouTuber e-celeb Tana Mojo, and well, my opinion on her is, well, come on, do I look like the target audience for Tana Mojo? I've never watched her, nor do I plan to. The only thing I've ever watched from her was that content comp on her.
Oh, yeah. And I remember the days when iDubbbz was still a pretty decent content creator. Before he eventually devolved into, well, cowdom. But that is neither here nor there.
But everything I've seen from her, she looks like she has the typical influencer lifestyle. And her content is just that. Seeing someone pretty rich and famous do pretty rich and famous things. It's about what you would expect. Despite it not being for me, she's still incredibly popular, far more popular than I'll ever be, so I feel no shame in ripping into her failures. Being as famous as she is, Tana would make appearances at VidCon.
Yeah.
Tana was, of course, very popular and one of the star attractions at VidCon, but as time went on, she hated constantly being treated like trash by the runners and staff, until 2018, when she had had enough. She released a video shortly before VidCon that year, expressing her discontent with VidCon and wasn't going to put up with it anymore. And to the excitement of her fans, she was going to make her own VidCon.
With hookers and hookers.
Yeah, I remember the TanaCon incident. And I think this is when VidCon was still having its controversial days. The enshittification of YouTube started way longer before anyone really knew about. It was disheartening to see.
I think all of the rebelled
There we go.
people and all of the unwanted people should host a little meet and greet in Anaheim, California on the same days as VidCon. I'd love to do it because I would love to make this shit bigger, better, and freer than VidCon. And I want to let you know, as the CEO of my new meet and greet that I'm having this June, I care about you and I'm excited to fucking meet you. So yeah.
TanaCon was going to have all your favorite e-celebs and influencers, with the main star of the show being, well, I can't quite put my finger on it. But all of your favorites were showing up, including Shane Dawson. Don't be
Oh god, hide your
I'm already
cats.
taking the precautions of hiding all my cats. Now, just because you're rich and famous doesn't mean that you know how to run your very own convention. It's a lot harder than you would think. It's not just you pay to be in a big place and all your adoring fans show up to give you an admiration and an ego boost. There is a lot of playing to be had to make it worthwhile, especially since this is supposed to be a substitute for VidCon. But they were at least smart enough to start small. They chose the Marriott Hotel as the location for the con, and this is where the problems arise. The Marriott in question is estimated to be able to hold only about 1,000 people, but Tana claims it held little over 3,000. Whether that's true or not, I have no idea. And for someone of Tana's size and a bunch of other celebrities, that is ridiculously small. Already, there are red flags showing up. When the actual first day of the convention rolled around, it was definitely way more than 1,000 people. There has never been a conclusive answer, but it's been estimated that between 4,000 to 15,000 people showed up at this con, and unless they're gonna start doing Dragon Ball Fusion dances, ain't no way they're all fitting in the Marriott. This was the Achilles.
Yeah, I still remember all the reports of heat stroke. Commentators had a field day with this incident. Then again, it was the golden years of the commentary community, so. Hey. I have been around this block for a long time.
Heel of the event. People came to the convention to attend the convention, and there was no way they were all fitting inside the hotel. Attendees would quickly get in line and start moving into the hotel, but after the initial few thousand filled in, the line and the people waiting outside came to a complete stop, and they stood in line for hours, hoping to get in, eventually. Did I forget to mention this convention took place in late June, on a hot summer day, in Anaheim? You got thousands of people outside the convention in the summer heat, getting sunburned, and nobody is offering food or water outside either, so some people are even passing out due to the heat. All this waiting in a line that will never move. The people on the inside were packed in like sardines. It's hard to move anywhere or do anything. Allowing any more people in here would make things even worse. From all the footage, it didn't look like it was fun waiting for the convention or even being in the convention. And if you left, you basically couldn't get back in because then someone in the 1,000 people Congo line outside would take your spot.
They're saying that if you leave the building right now for any reason, whether to go to someone goes to whatever, you have to go all the way around. But because of how busy it is, you may not get back in.
Is this where the line starts?
People on the inside were crowded and starving, people on the outside were scorched and thirsty, tensions just got higher and higher as the day got hotter and hotter, and eventually, after being outside for several hours, the people in the line started to riot.
I mean, give Bethesda land credit. There is actually some shit to do. Oh, emphasis on some.
It didn't look good for anyone running the event, and after a while, they finally decided it was best to just shut the whole thing down, and this just made people even more upset.
Today, it has been canceled completely. I apologize. Tomorrow, you can email Veeks and talk about that. I apologize. I'm one person I can't. Okay.
Everyone was told to get out and to go back home. After everything was said and done, the convention was done for. All the future events were canceled, and everyone went back home.
So TanaCon Day 1 completed. Let's see if we can get to Day 2 tomorrow.
It didn't even last a full day. The fallout was...
And did it even start? I don't even know if that actually happened. But yeah, this was definitely something I blocked out of my memory. Probably good for good reason.
TanaCon was pretty bad. A ton of people came out with their side of it. Tana would make an apology for the event.
I am not placing blame on anyone other than myself. I take full blame, so I want to tell you, if you're watching this, if in any way I let you down, I'm sorry.
We're sorry.
Shane Dawson, the cat lover, made a little documentary on it to get a ton of people's inside opinions who were a part of it, and you can see just how distraught Tana is about the whole thing. It seems Tana has left the failure of TanaCon behind, as she ran right back into the arms of VidCon.
So yeah, VidCon and I are friends again.
Give Tana Mojo credit where it's due. She at the very least did take some accountability for what happened. Well, some accountability, anyways. I mean, sure, that sounds like a pretty low bar to on its own, but even getting that much accountability from a YouTuber these days is a tall order.
Now all TanaCon is a footnote in an East Lips past that can only be looked back on in embarrassment, and for other YouTubers to get content out of. Cha-ching! Moral of the story is, don't try to top one
enjoy the
tiger with
grift.
no planning, and also, please keep your egos in check. All these convention disasters have happened quite a while ago, and they're all events one can take notes from to make sure they don't make the same mistakes. Well, apparently, those weren't enough because disastrous conventions are still happening to this day, as this next one I'm about to talk about happened just last month, so a very recent case indeed. This next one is a fan convention for Pokemon fans. Oh boy, more Pokemon fandom stuff, just what I needed after last time. And it was a convention hosted in the Philippines
opening
called
those cans of worms.
And everything you'll see in this segment have all been pictures taken by this kind woman on Twitter, who was nice enough to let me use her pictures in this video. So by all means, please go check out her Twitter and see these pics and her other work for yourself. What she was able to capture on camera in the Pokeverse was DashCon Pokemon Edition. Like, holy crap. The parallels and the entire design and look of the convention are borderline uncanny. You could Photoshop the ball pit in this place and it would look like an old DashCon photo. But am I here to rag on the emptiness of the convention and the obvious DashCon look of the place? Yes. But there are other issues which are highlighted in this Twitter thread about this, which I will do my very best to cover. This is still a semi-recent convention, so everything regarding it still isn't known yet, but there's still plenty to cover. The entire event was advertised for kids and adults. You could come here and sell your merch, learn how to draw, and meet the OG voice actors of the show, who flew all the way to the Philippines to come to this convention. There were a ton of events planned, a bunch of different places to visit, and to advertise the event, they used these AR cards, which turned out to be traced artwork, and had this animation with a Pokemon trainer on them, which happened to use an already existing animation just plastered on it. That's
already a good time.
So as shown earlier, the entire convention is pretty barren. There are places for collectors to show off their expensive Pokemon collections, then there's the starter wall, where it's supposed to represent the first 3 Pokemon you could pick in the series, and it's represented by 3 plushies on pedestals, and that's it. Nothing else is here. That's like a running theme of this convention. There is one thing of interest in an open room, and nothing else. There's this area with a bunch of paintings as a point of interest, but they're like 5 miles away where the people would be at. You couldn't just push the tables a little closer to the wall? There's this so-called rest area, which is like 3 bean bags and a table.
Yeesh. This place seriously needed a lot of more people to attend. Hey.
I wonder if they decide who gets the beanbags of Pokemon battles. This is one of those conventions where you can definitely tell they did not plan it very well at all. A number of the supposed events never actually happened. There was this supposed baking event, which apparently just turned out to be an advertisement for a kick and drink service. There was also supposed to be this live sketching event, which just turned out to be some guys taking commissions. There wasn't even a place for cosplayers to change costumes, so they just started changing in the rest area, in broad public. If you were an indie artist, it was reportedly quite a pretty penny to even get here. It was said to be several thousand pesos, and when converted to US money, it was upwards of almost $400, which, if you ask me, that sounds like that was the entire budget for the convention. There was one main attraction of the convention, though. They actually had their very own cryptid walking about, dubbed Ravioli Man, who would walk around eating ravioli out of a jar and smearing it all over himself. Now this I would pay money to see in person. However, it seems like Ravioli Man wasn't actually meant to be there. He eventually got kicked out after he apparently used a sponge to start smearing ravioli sauce and everything. Really, there was probably just a whole heap of mismanagement that went on here. The person who also brought this all to the public also goes into more stuff that's more personal to her, being an artist and a singer. And I really don't want to steal all of her thunder, so please, if you want more, I implore you to go check out the original Twitter thread and how much this being a total mess mattered to her. She, however, did make it clear she wanted me to cover one very specific part of this, and as a man of my word, I will. And it's pretty bad. Near the end of the convention, they hold this contest and have a bunch of actors, singers, and people perform on stage, and it went well, for the most part. Now, something that I've neglected to mention is that this convention was also partnered with the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and in doing so, they allowed some of the kids under Make-A-Wish to attend this convention, but that's not the bad part. The bad part is, the convention staff got the bright idea to bring these kids on stage and pose for the camera. These terminally ill kids who are sick, weak, and probably can't get around well, and have had their immune systems compromised. They just show them off to the crowd. Wow. What made them think this was a good idea?
Money. Which this convention didn't make. But yeah, in all seriousness, Jesus fucking Christ, that couldn't have looked good on paper. Hey. Fucking hell, man.
There's even pics of them taking some of these kids' face masks off so they could be easier to understand. My god, that's an awful idea! Lord knows what could be floating around that convention center, the same convention center that just had a man spreading ravioli sauce everywhere. Taking off their masks is the last thing you want to do. What a way to cap off a bad convention. Pokeverse was just all around not very good. Pokeverse would later apologize to the woman who made this all public, promising to do better and make amends.
We're sorry.
It hasn't gotten as much coverage as it should because, well, it happened in the Philippines, and only for Pokemon fans down there. You couldn't get any more niche and specific. But it just goes to show you, no matter what part of the globe you're on, what language you speak, or what your skin color is, it is always possible to pull a DashCon. Now, if you ask me, they could have fixed this entire convention by getting just an RPG on stage.
Sing with me, Russian Ram!
God dang.
Now, this last
actually remember
today,
this one.
I'm sort of bending the rules for this one. We had a convention fall apart by the last day, we had a convention fall apart the first day, and now we have a convention fall apart before it even happened. This convention never actually transpired, and the reason as to why are so strange and shady, they still deserve to be talked about. This convention that never happened was all based around Minecraft. Minecraft was at its peak popularity in the early 2010s. Like, it was the game of the time. Everyone was playing it. So many YouTuber careers were spawned because of it. And then their YouTube careers died because their entire channel was Minecraft, and they couldn't adapt after it was no longer the biggest game on the planet. It was ripe time for a convention.
I mean, Captain Sparkles tried to adapt with the Reddit reactions, and I was pretty decent at it. Emphasis on decent, he wasn't the best.
To happen, and one did. In fact, several did. There were a ton of Minecraft conventions, but then there was also the official Minecraft convention, Minecon, which led to so many noteworthy moments.
What's the recommended amount of dedicated RAM I should have to a server?
How many of you have autism, and if so, has it helped you in your modding career?
Probably.
Now, don't everyone speak up at once.
But you know, Minecon is successful, so we're not talking about Minecon. We're talking about an unofficial Minecraft convention made by someone that attended Minecon, so we're on some from the producers who saw Shrek shit right now. A man named Lou Gasco had attended Minecon in 2013. Lou Gasco wasn't just some random guy. He was a well-known project manager. He has worked on a number of projects for multiple companies. He's wrote a few books on project managing, so this isn't just some random guy wanting to make a quick buck. It's an actual industry expert who's been working on things for well over a decade. Lou had been working on his current project at the time, the greatest science fair ever, which was this non-profit organization to make virtual science fairs to get kids interested in science. But you see, Lou wanted a way to get some funds for this since it was, you know, non-profit. And he went to Minecon for inspiration after he saw his son playing it. Since Minecraft was at its peak around this time, Lou was incredibly impressed by the sheer size of the con and all the kids attending. They were really into it. And seeing as he needed to find someone to get them interested in science, he got an idea. What if he made his own Minecraft convention for people to attend, and he would use those funds from the convention to fund his nonprofit organization? He was simply hopping on that Minecraft gravy train like everyone else was around the time. He then got into contact with some Minecraft YouTubers, and they all decided to create...
Hey, at the very least, he didn't get on the Roblox train. I'm sorry. Had to get the joke in.
an unofficial Minecraft convention to fund his nonprofit project, Minorama. Minorama was set to be a huge convention that took place in New York City and was planned to have tons of e-celebs and Minecraft YouTubers show up, and as the ads took off, the con quickly gained traction online, and they started selling out of tickets fast. Thousands of them, and it's estimated they racked up about $500,000 in just ticket sales, and for a first-time con, that is incredible. Things were looking great, but at the same time, the organizers were about to get smacked in the face with reality. $500,000 is a lot of money, but that would not be nearly enough to make the convention how they wanted. New York City is, of course, one of the biggest cities in the United States, and usually how it goes, the bigger the city, the more expensive pretty much everything is, and the same goes for convention planning. They would need well over $1 million to pull this convention off, and just ticket door sales weren't going to do it. Lou, using the pull he had, he was able to get a ton of sponsors to pitch in and give money to the event, since it was also going towards a good cause. He got almost 20 different sponsors for this event. That combined with the ticket sales was surely enough for the convention. The hype behind the convention was massive, with a ton of Minecraft tubers advertising they were going to be there. And with 1 week to go, it seems like everything was in place. And then, tragedy struck. Minorama would announce the entire thing had been postponed, just a week before it was set to happen. Why did they postpone the show? Nobody knows.
Sorry.
Some have said it was due to Mojang hitting them with a cease and desist, but I've looked online, I can't find any evidence of this. And it was delayed to never. Minorama...
Yeah, that's why I think the claims of the guy who made the event being professional are dubious. He made like one convention, but considering he literally just backed out of the whole thing at the last second and never launched the event he planned for ages, I honestly question if the dude actually was a professional and not just some elaborate con artist.
never actually happened, but that's not what caused chaos. What caused chaos was the fact there were no refunds. $500,000 worth of ticket sales were never going to be given back. This quickly had everyone turn on the event and the organizers, many flat out calling the entire thing a scam. Now the event getting cancelled, of course, upset a lot of people. But many weren't just going to give up that easy. A bunch of big Minecraft players came together and in just a few short days threw enough cash together to hold a smaller con called UCube, and gave all the people who signed up for Monorama something to do after already making plans to be in New York City. It wasn't as flashy or very high budget at all, but it was something, and a lot of people were happy with what they got. Now, as for the Monorama organizers, they were basically just called scammers. The whole Monorama business venture filed for bankruptcy and everyone moved on. Lou himself still has the event on his LinkedIn, so he still takes pride in the fact he nearly made it, and he still takes most of the blame for it to this day. But what happened to the $500,000 they raised? Nobody knows what it was being used for, or if it was even being used for the convention at all. Did it go towards Lou's Science Fair project, which the website is now no longer up in 2024? Nobody knows for certain. But you want to know the craziest thing of all? Monorama was scheduled to happen on July 12th through the 13th, 2014. What other convention was happening during that time? DashCon. Yeah, it all wraps back around to DashCon. In two completely different states, two different convention disasters were happening at the same time. One of them never happened, and one of them has a reputation of being the worst convention ever. Either you were having the worst time ever at DashCon, or you were having your money taken by Monorama. What a timeline to live in. Alright boys and girls, it's been a fun day of cringe, but it's about time I log off. All these conventions were a you had to be there moment in time. Even though the majority of them were disastrous, the vast majority of people will probably still remember them. The sunburns, the emptiness, the ball pit, they will stay in the minds of many for probably the remainder of their lives, just showing you even in failure, you can still win in some way. You shouldn't be scared if a convention goes wrong. Either way, it'll still be entertaining in some way, shape, or form. And then YouTubers like me can make clickbait videos on them to give you a dopamine hit of nostalgia. And who doesn't love that? Who doesn't love me?
Maybe they will name a city after me.
God bless, like and subscribe, and good night. Don't worry, my friends. Magic Mush Con will never happen. I'm not gonna embarrass myself like that. Maybe.
I think they ready for this one. Jump in the pit.
Yep, classy. But yeah, that was Magic Mush's video on the catastrophic conventions that were not DashCon. Let's see, what else do we have? Oh yeah, there's Camp Sandwich's anti-monopoly debacle old video. I've been meaning to actually watch that one. Alright, oh, guess that treads it. Yeah. Here is Camp Sandwich's video on anti-monopoly. I never actually heard of anti-monopoly, so this one I'm just going in blind.
How's it going, dudes? You ever nearly bankrupt a multi-million-dollar corporation on accident? You ever make a board game that makes somebody so mad that the Supreme Court nearly gets involved? You ever have someone walk up to you with life-changing money and just tell them to F off? Well, I've got one guy that managed to do all three of those things in less than a decade. Ralph Onspach, creator of the hit 1973 classic Anti-Monopoly.
Ah, that's quite the track record right there. Well, definitely gonna have to hear about this.
Anti-monopoly is the subject of one of the craziest sagas in the history of the genre, as this simple bust-the-trust game has been embroiled in immense controversy, untold amounts of confusion, and multiple lawsuits that had the potential to completely unravel the entire board game market. This thing in my hands? Apparently one of the most important games ever published, and most of us have never even heard of it. So what I'm going to do here is try to learn you a little bit about what this thing is and what it did, including all of the whack crap that stemmed from its many courtroom appearances, like how it almost killed the entire Monopoly brand. Remember the Breaky courtroom drama, when they almost hired the Backstreet Boys to make a song about these things? This stuff is in a whole other league. But before we can figure out why this game caused so much trouble, we first need to know what the game even is. So let's dive barefoot and blindfolded into an absolute mess by taking a look at one of the most destructive board games in history, Anti-Monopoly. Anti-Monopoly is the 1973 title that sees players take up the roles of trust-busting lawyers who are attempting to break up the oligopolies, trusts, and monopolies that are holding the market hostage. You do this by moving around the board and purchasing indictments on the companies you land on, successfully busting a trust when you can manage to fill all of the indictment slots on a group. Social credit points are awarded for these and other actions, and the one with the most at the end wins both for themselves and for the economy. Okay, so first impressions with this one. Does this remind anybody of any other games in particular? Oh my gosh, they totally ripped off Connect 4! Yeah, upon first viewing, the Monopoly comparisons will literally start flying immediately, not helped.
It is literally called Anti-Monopoly. I'm pretty sure the similarities would ultimately be there.
By the fact that Monopoly is 60% of the game's title. However, there are several key distinguishing features here that would help separate the two in a purely hypothetical lawsuit. None of the spaces share the same names, the gameplay and win conditions are all completely different, the designs of all the components separate themselves very well. This could very easily be another late for the sky Dashopoly title and not find any legal trouble at all. Now, in terms of a Dash Monopoly title, we'll have to see how that goes later. Back to the game though, it does a very good job at looking at the problems of regular Monopoly and trying its best to avoid them. For example, you won't have to worry about one guy hoarding one property of each color, as once you have two indictments on one group, you get assigned to that case. So no one else can try to take it from you, and if you complete it, then they'll need to pay you supervisory payments to keep an eye on those dastardly monopolies. Oh, you can trust me, buddy, these Google guys, they're not going anywhere. What's funny about this game is that you are all trying to work together to break up as many trusts as possible, but you are still trying to be the #1 buster as well. Each player has their own budget, their own cases, and can take out their own loans to help out. And once the first player runs out of money, you...
Yeah, I have actually seen this. If you're, I'll be really here, being competitive when it comes to good causes is kind of double-edged sword. Sure, it could ultimately motivate some companies to up the ante for how much you raise for the cause, but that competition could also result in toxicity and ultimately corrupting that cause to be completely unrecognizable. Just a small concern.
soon see who has the most points to determine the winner. Alright, good job everybody. We did only manage to break up the Auntie Anne's Pretzelopoly before Steven bankrupted himself, but that means that Kevin officially gets the gold star sticker. We'll meet up again next year. Of course, any self-respecting game could always use a little chaos, which is where the mailbox cards come in, causing effects that can help or harm your mission, such as your testimony inspiring a tightening of antitrust laws, political pressure ruining all your hard work, the Supreme Court ruling for or against your interests, one of your key witnesses fleeing the country altogether, getting invited to address the Commonwealth Club, which I believe doesn't do anything, a monopolistic businessman getting appointed to the head of the antitrust division, you getting caught bugging the office of a fellow agent, or you receiving one of several accolades, like winning Trustbuster of the Year, making this year's Who's Who in Washington, or even getting promoted, all of which do absolutely nothing. Keep up the good work, sport. Overall, a pretty easy, simple game that helps you learn the bare.
My God, those are way too realistic gameplay effects. Especially the awards that don't do anything. This game really was ahead of its time. Or maybe we just didn't progress. Who can say?
Bare essentials of the antitrust process if you haven't the slightest clue what any of that is, with it also being admittedly pretty funny sometimes. But as this thing hit store shelves and subsequently started flying off of them, there was one group that was absolutely not laughing. Not laughing at all. So let's go now into super special awesome story time and see what led Parker Brothers to almost implode their entire gosh dang business. The year, December. Time, 1973. Ralph Anspach, econ professor at San Francisco State, publishes Anti-Monopoly to a decent opening, selling approximately 419,000 copies and bringing in nearly $1 million in revenue. This is what we in the business call a lot of freaking money. Not
Dang. Yeah, make that cheddar, son.
Not one to enjoy the sight of somebody having a good time, the Parker brothers saw the increasing popularity of anti-monopoly and said, hey, wait a minute, we're regular Monopoly, and promptly sent Professor Anspach a cease and desist letter telling him to stop producing the game, destroy any current copies that he has, change any future titles so that they focus more on the trust-busting action, and allegedly run an ad in the newspaper apologizing for all the trouble? I would not.
Oh, hey. Christ, I cannot pronounce shit today. Hey, Frizella. Jesus Christ. Can I ever pronounce shit properly? But yeah, Heyo. Right now I am watching Cam Sandwich's video on anti-monopoly while I work on my B3 model. As for the video, yeah, that just sounds like an average YouTuber lawsuit. Glad to hear nothing changed there.
Put this past a legal team to request, but I say allegedly here as we'll find out later that our good buddy Ralph is already leaving out some key info. Professor Anspach, upon receiving a legal threat from a massive corporation with a full-fledged legal department behind them, decides that the only reasonable course of action is to, of course, go to court and sue them first. That's a bold strategy, Cameron. Let's see how that plays out for him. With this move, the professor has now locked himself in a legal duel. His dinky team of 2 lawyers against the entire legal might of the General Mills Fun Group, who owned Parker Brothers at the time. This kicked off a nearly 10-year-long brawl between the two that included about every twist that you could possibly imagine until they just ran out of courtrooms entirely. And it's my job now to try.
So he basically decided it saw a ton of lawyers come his way, and just told them to bring it. I respect that brazen stupidity. Kudos.
To relay this nonsense to you in a way that is comprehensible at all. A tall task when I just spent 4 hours looking through.
Ah, shoot. I have to BRB real quick. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. Okay, let me see here. Here it is. Alright. Yeah, let's, here.
Ran out of courtrooms entirely, and it's my job now to try to relay this nonsense to you in a way that is comprehensible at all. A tall task when I just spent 4 hours looking through the appeals. So to start us off on this crazy train, let's begin with the very first lawsuit on offer. Anti-Monopoly Inc. versus General Mills Fund Group, Northern District Court of California. Now, this is by far the most complicated story ever covered on here. In addition to most of the information coming in the form of legal documents, there are a ton of contrasting accounts all over the internet as to who did what when and what actually even happened. So what I'm going to
Wow, lawsuit where shit gets complicated? That's unheard of. But yeah, better pay attention since, yeah, as he said, the story might get pretty complicated. Alright, let's see. Yeah, back then this sketch phase.
do here is present the timeline of information in the order that events were given to the courts, with the info provided by the court documents being what I'm going with as my best source since they were the ones used to make the decisions. As an example of what I'm dealing with here, there is a documentary by PBS about this time period and Monopoly's history, and just by reading the documents of the case that they are talking about, they have gotten multiple things wrong. So with that, let's
Sheesh. A professional documentary that has very sparse and has very dubious details. This case really must be complicated.
finally start this nonsense off. Plaintiff, Anti-Monopoly Inc., claims that the entire Monopoly trademark is completely invalid based on two factors. It was either never valid to begin with, or has since become generic enough to void the trademark altogether. So basically, they sent this man a cease and desist letter, and his first reaction was to try to completely destroy the Monopoly brand. Defendant, General Mills Fund Group, claims that the Monopoly trademark is, in fact, valid and enforceable.
He came for the jugular immediately.
Real shocker there, and that anti-monopoly is in violation of that trademark. Now, you may be wondering how in the heck the professor here is going to try to argue that Monopoly's trademark is invalid when it's been perfectly fine for the last 40-odd years. Well, he undertook quite the feat to try to make this happen, as his goal was to prove that the story that Parker Brothers had been selling America on the origin of Monopoly had been, in fact, a lie. Originally, the story of Monopoly started from Charles Darrow. A man down on his luck after the Great Depression comes up with a revolutionary idea for a board game about buying and selling properties. He pitches the idea to a struggling Parker Brothers, it becomes a massive hit, zippity-doo-dah, everyone's rich. Now, this story is all well and good, but as the professor began to look around, he noticed some inconsistencies. Mainly that in October 1933, Darrow got the copyright for the game before Parker Brothers received both the rights and a trademark for Monopoly in 1935. Well, during his search, he began to find an increasing number of reports of people who played a real estate property trading game as early as the 1920s. These games going by various names in different parts of the country like inflation, business, finance, and in multiple cases, Monopoly. What they are describing here is what the documentary calls a folk game, a game that is created and spread around an area due to people just making it up and telling others about it rather than a company creating and selling it. Examples of which being games like chess or tic-tac-toe. Well, this presented the professor with an interesting angle, as if he could prove that Darrow had simply commandeered an already established game, then he might be able to get Parker Brothers' entire trademark revoked. If you think you know where this is going...
Yeah. That has got to be the most batshit insane plan I've ever fucking heard. And yeah, I know it's not gonna work, but I appreciate this dude's stones.
From here, I wish it was that simple. The professor eventually gets into contact with a Charles Todd who knew Darrow, and he recounts that after inviting him over to play a game called Monopoly, Darrow liked it so much that he asked him if he could borrow the rules and the board. And later that year, a copyright for Monopoly in Darrow's name is suddenly established. Now, this wouldn't automatically win him the case. Regardless of whether or not Darrow stole the idea, this angle hinges on Monopoly being a widespread established game to get the trademark overturned. But to Parker Brothers, this is regardless a massive problem. What has just transpired in the last couple years is that they sent a cease and desist letter to shut down another game with Monopoly in the title, entered a legal battle that they couldn't control because Ralph sued first, and that guy they sent the letter to is now bringing people and evidence that proves the story they had been selling Monopoly on for the last 40 years was a complete lie, which, even if they won the suit, would become public information if this trial went through. So the totally not panic.
I mean, it's still a marketed product. Regardless of whether or not the story was true, people still remember the icons well enough that I don't even think they even know there was a story behind it. And I don't think anyone really would have believed the story anyway, so... I mean, let's face it. Everyone knows McDonald's was basically commandeered by a shady salesman. That's kind of public knowledge. And I'm pretty sure everyone just kind of figured that a similar story just happened here too.
Why do you ask? Members of the Parker Brothers decide to try and curb this little mishap before things just get a bit out of hand. Hey, Ralph, buddy, pal, friend. Look, I know we've both said and done some things that we might regret, and the court costs are really starting to add up, what with all the preparation and lawyers and junk. So we've got a solution that we think would help both sides. We really like the game you made. Great game, by the way. Really gets the message across. In fact, we like it so much that we are willing to buy the rights to it so that it can be sold all over the country. We will give you $500,000 for the rights to Anti-Monopoly, and we will also give you an executive level position at Parker Brothers so that we can just put all of this behind us and you can keep making more great games. What?
Yeah, that offer has the same vibes of Nintendo buying a porno specifically so they never be allowed to show it again. Yeah, Nintendo actually did that.
What do you say? Nah. Okay, sounds good. Hey, how did the settlement offer go? We are dead! And so the trial begins! We've got quite a battle for you today, ladies and gentlemen, with round 1 ready to start. First up, was Monopoly...
I mean, I wouldn't say dead, more like has a massive fucking dent in your business that will eventually heal, but the scar will definitely show for a good long while. I mean, it's Parker Brothers after all. But what do I know?
A generic term to describe real estate trading board games prior to the trademark.
Okay, if I mentioned McDonald's, remember that McDonald's Monopoly kind of a game where you won prizes that turned out to be rigged? Oh yeah, everyone kind of knows that. I only really ever played the Monopoly event for the free shit that I never really use anyways. Why do I care about that event? Yeah, well.
So, the trademark is invalid. After the court spends, I kid you not, 6 consecutive paragraphs talking about wheat, the court eventually agreed that small groups of related people had played Monopoly in various parts of the country prior to Parker Brothers registering the trademark. However, the court concluded that this was insufficient to prove that the term was the common descriptive name of all real estate trading games. Basically saying that while the name Monopoly was thrown around here or there, similar games were also floating around going by different names like finance or inflation. Which was true. Don't believe me? Look up Mr. Monopoly Inflation and see for yourself. As a result, the court ruled that Monopoly
nice
was
try.
not...
I am not Googling that again. Wait. Shit.
A generic term prior to the trademark. So this round goes to Sergeant General Mills. Round 2. Has Monopoly become a generic name since the trademark registration? What the court is trying to determine here is if the term Monopoly now refers to all real estate trading board games and not an individual game emanating from a single source. This would be a load of barnacles. What they are trying to see here is if it has just become common practice to refer to any real estate trading game as Monopoly. Not a Monopoly ripoff, not a Monopoly-like, not a Trump version of Monopoly. You would just call both of these games Monopoly, and that's it. This has happened with other products before, like Trampoline or Videotape, but this is absolutely not the case with Monopoly, as all of these real estate trading games cannot just be called Monopoly without massive confusion. If you invite me over for a game of Monopoly and you pull out Joel Harden's Mogul, I am going to cause quite the kerfuffle. The court also agreed with this sentiment.
Yeah, I kinda have to agree, too. Much as it hurts to say. I mean, that's literally the whole point of a trademark, so props for them actually enforcing that being what it's supposed to do for once.
ruling that Monopoly had not become a generic name since its registration, awarding Round 2 also to Major General Mills. Round 3. Is anti-monopoly in violation of Parker Brothers' trademark on Monopoly? Yes, of course it is. Now, I am not a lawyer, so I don't know all of the intricacies of trademark law, but my guy, look at this! So, round 3 also goes to Private General Mills, awarding them the 3-0 supermarket sweep and figuratively killing anti-monopoly. As a result of this lawsuit, Professor Onspach had to turn over all remaining copies of Anti-Monopoly to Parker Brothers, which they would treat with care and respect by literally killing Anti-Monopoly, trashing all 40,000 copies of the game that were given to them, and inviting journalists out to watch them bury the games in a landfill as some sort of show of force. They dug a mass board game grave and invited people out to take pictures like, haha, celebrating my big win. Coming to the
Yeah, really helping the image right there. Story's still out. And nothing says valid than a book burning, or a board game burning, I suppose.
Conclusion that, well, we can't possibly do any worse, the professor's team appealed, bringing us to Anti-Monopoly Inc. versus General Mills Fun Group, The Appeal, Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Alright, we're back and we've got some issues with the last case. First, we're appealing the court's decision that the Monopoly trademark is valid. Okay, in terms of originally valid or since it was trademarked? Both. We're also appealing the court's decision that anti-monopoly is in violation of that trademark. So you don't think the trademark's valid, but if it is, then you aren't in violation of it anyway? Yeah. Why didn't you go for that the first time then? Buddy, we're at the appeals court. I'm just taking swings here. The appeals court process is attempting...
Yeah, that did sound like an easier thing to do. Yeah, maybe it just didn't occur to me that time. I don't know.
To look over what was done in the original trial and see if everything was conducted properly. If not, then they may have to do a whole other trial to make sure that the process is done right. First up, no new information was added, everything was in line with the previous ruling. Yeah, this one still stands. Give us a little more time on that one. What? No. Wait a minute. Aw, they biffed it! In the first trial, the court decided that monopoly was not a generic term for all real estate trading games, and therefore is not generic. But this is not what they should have been looking for. The appeals court states that what they should have been evaluating, based on what anti-monopoly was trying to convey, was whether or not monopoly constituted its own genus. Okay. This one is tough, so bear with me here. They are saying, to the absolute best of my understanding, that the relevant product category is not all real estate trading games, but the game played by the rules of Monopoly. So, Monopoly. In order to decide the case properly, the first court needed to differentiate the meanings a particular and very popular board game and a game produced by a single company. To quote the judge's very easy to follow example, it may be that when a customer enters a game store and asks for Monopoly, he means, I would like Parker Brothers' version of a real estate trading game because I like Parker Brothers products. On the other hand, the customer may mean, I want a Monopoly game. Don't bother showing me anti-Monopoly or easy money or backgammon. I am interested in playing the game of Monopoly. I don't much care who makes it. The proper mode of analysis is to decide but one question, whether the primary significance of a term is to denote product or source. In making this determination, the correct genus-species distinction, that is, the correct genericness finding follows automatically. And that finding is? Well, I'm not gonna tell you, you figure it out. After spending all this time prattling on about how easy it would be to correctly find the answer to the generic question, the judge does not give an answer to the question, reverses the previous court's decision, and tells them that they're going to hold another trial in a few years, so you might want to go see if there's any more evidence out there. So, not only has the appeals court match ended in a complete stalemate, but I honestly could not even tell you what they are even looking for to determine the winner anymore. My guy went up to...
That is chat energy right there. Or at least troll energy. Like, even when they win, he wins.
his honorable judge bench and said, well, we don't know if when someone buys something, they're thinking I like this product or I like this company, and that's gotta count for something. Go ahead and think on that for about 2 years. So they sent these two schmucks on their merry way, and in 1981, they're back at the district court with some new stuff to hopefully close this one out for good. It's time for Anti-Monopoly Inc. versus General Mills Fun Group, the rematch. Northern District Court of California. In our third gosh dang matchup between these goobers, we are looking to primarily establish two things. One, is the Monopoly trademark still valid? And two, if it is anti-monopoly in violation of it? Each side has brought some new evidence in to help out their case, so let's take a look. The Landlord's game is name-dropped in the document, so at this point we know that the history is the Landlord's game was made, it spun off into all these little versions of real estate games across the country, and then those eventually led to Monopoly. It has been discovered that the Professor's game was not always called Anti-Monopoly, but was originally called Bust the Trust. After the game failed to take off, Ralph changed the name to Anti-Monopoly. And lo and behold, including the visage of an extremely popular product can really help yours get some traction in the market. This little detail was surprisingly omitted in the documentary. No new evidence has been provided for the trademark infringement portion, so both sides have pretty much agreed that if there is a trademark, this thing is not allowed. And surveys were put together by both sides in order to get a glimpse into the mind of the American consumer. Here's what they found. It is determined that the Professor's survey not only does a bad job at finding the right information, but it is pointed out that the survey is trying to skew the results in their favor by asking leading questions. It even fails at doing this right, as 1 out of 3 people who bought Monopoly said they did so mainly because they liked Parker Brothers products. The Parker survey is much less controversial, with it finding that 63% of people could correctly identify Monopoly as a brand name, and that 55% of people could correctly identify Parker Brothers as the maker of the game. That seems...
Guess they finally found the lawyer who was actually good at their lawsuits. Why was Parker Brothers scared of this game again?
It's like a low number, but more than half is a pretty solid score. If you went up to random people on the street and asked them, hey, who makes Oreos? Do you think more than half of them would get it? Do you even know who makes Oreos? That's pretty much all the new evidence, so let's see what the courts are thinking this time. Is this gosh dang trademark still valid or not? 1. Generic before it was made. While it is confirmed that Monopoly was played prior to the patent, there is not enough evidence to show that Monopoly was played widely enough to constitute the status as generic. This combined with the fact that Darrow and Parker Brothers popularized their own original version of the game, the trademark was made properly. Slimily, yes, but not illegally. This has been the case pretty much since the beginning, so let's go to the problem child.
Yeah. I sadly have to concede to that. patent offices don't usually look into whether or not something is valid before it actually gets processed, so and in their defense, would you really expect them to know the story of every single person who tries to patent something? Granted, this may be why we have a ton of patent trolls in America, but still.
That can't quite seem to make up its mind. 2. Generic since it was made. This court is required by the appeal court to try to find that super easy answer to the genericness question that the last judge totally knew, but he wants to hear your answer first just to make sure that you know too. The new judge is very excited about this project, as you can tell from the tone of several of his quotes in the document. One fact which this court need not ignore is that most consumers, indeed an overwhelming proportion thereof, purchase any given product not out of goodwill or affection for the producer, but because they want or favor the product. Only a shareholder of the General Mills Fun Group could reasonably be expected to purchase a Parker Brothers game out of an affection or goodwill for the corporation.
I mean, are they wrong? We live in a era where boycotts literally don't work anymore. Or at least don't work online.
Accordingly, the Ninth Circuit's mandate that this court divine the primary significance of monopoly in the consumer's mind must necessarily involve subtle inferences into the complex, convoluted mind of the American consumer, an unenviable task. Unless the Ninth Circuit standard is meant to foreclose the possibility of trademark protection for any producer of a unique game whose corporate name does not appear in the title of the game, example, Scrabble, then its test cannot be used here to thwart Monopoly's trademark rights. Ladies and gentlemen, Judge Spencer Williams, District Court of Fed Up With Your Crap. Coming as no surprise after that spiel, Monopoly is determined to primarily denote Parker Brothers, and the trademark is upheld yet again. So with the third court case in a row still not siding with the professor, there really is only one thing we can do from here. That's right, it's time to launch another appeal! My guy, there are
Yeah. I get this dude's reasoning. He may lose, but hey, at least he'll make it so that they don't enjoy it.
Only so many appeals before you hit the Supreme Court and can't go any further. Welcome one and all to Anti-Monopoly Inc. versus General Mills Fun Group, the rematch, the appeal, Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. What we're looking for this time is what we were looking for in all the other ones. Is the trademark valid? We've got a different judge for this appeal than the last one, so let's hope that this guy doesn't also speak in riddles, and we've also got a little more information that could be relevant to the case. We have finally properly nailed down the monopoly origin for good thanks to a letter from the president of Parker Brothers himself in 1957, which reads the following. So far as we know, the Landlord's game, invented by Mrs. Elizabeth Maggie Phillips of Washington, D.C., was the basic game for both finance and monopoly. Mrs. Phillips patented her game and we purchased her patent. Mr. Charles Darrow later made many improvements to the Landlord's game and called his game Monopoly. He too secured a patent which he assigned to us. Because of the fact that we purchased all three games, it does not make very much difference to us who invented either one of the games. During that 1934-1935 time period, Parker Brothers did...
Yeah. That's, kind of summarizes a lot of business practices, honestly.
Indeed purchased the rights to not only Monopoly, but also other games like it, such as the Landlord's game and Finance, in order to keep those games from splitting the market share. With a now monopoly on Monopoly, they would slowly phase out the other titles until only Monopoly remained, allowing it to dominate store shelves. They were likely going to do the same to Anti-Monopoly had Ralph accepted their first offer, as Mrs. Phillips' game was eventually forgotten for several decades after it was sold for around $12,000 in today's money. So with this being the fourth court case about this, they've decided to re-examine every piece of relevant information to make sure that they get it right this time. And here's what they came up with. In terms of whether it was generic prior to the trademark, they have fully accepted the correct Monopoly timeline of Landlord's game, to small groups, to various titles, to Monopoly. When a small number of people use a particular thing and call it by a particular name, one which is not a common descriptive term for the thing, a person may appropriate the name and register it as a trademark. The purpose of the doctrine that generic terms cannot be made trademarks is to prevent the appropriation of a term that is already in wide use among those who are potential purchasers of the thing that the term describes. We agree with the trial judge's conclusion that Monopoly had not become generic before Parker Brothers registered it as a trademark. That was the easy one. That one never changed throughout the whole of the proceedings. But now, we hit the wackiest of crap. Part 2. Has Monopoly become generic since it was registered? Per the appeals court, in Anti-Monopoly 2, the district court also said this. Unless the Ninth Circuit standard is meant to foreclose the possibility of trademark protection for any producer of a unique game whose corporate name does not appear in the title of the game, example, Scrabble, then its test cannot be used here to thwart Monopoly's trademark rights. Nothing in our opinion in Anti-Monopoly 1 even hints at the relevance of whether or not the corporate name of the producer of the game appears in the title of the game. And our opinion does not foreclose the possibility of trademark protection of the name of a game that does not embody the corporate name of its producer. But our opinion does squarely hold as follows. Even if only one producer, Parker Brothers, has ever made the Monopoly game so that the public necessarily associates the product with that particular producer, the trademark is invalid unless source identification is its primary significance. So, what they are saying here, to the best of my understanding, is that it is absolutely still possible to not include the name of the producer in the name of the game and have a trademark, so long as the name of the game makes sure to link it back to the producer. How the heck are you supposed to do that? So, per their own words, you don't need to include Joel Harden's in the Mogul title to hold a trademark. But you also can't just use Mogul because it's a common English word that doesn't relate back to the producer. That would be seen as generic. So you just need to find a way to relate Mogul back to the producer. Say, maybe by making the title Mogul Joel Harden. See, it's completely different. My honorable judge really got up in that chair and went, nothing we said shuts down the ability to have a name that doesn't mention the maker. And in the very next sentence, completely shuts down the ability to have a name that doesn't mention the maker. As we
Got all that? Don't worry, neither did I. Starting to see why this story is pretty complicated. Ah, hold on, kind of message. Anyway.
Have seen, the district court relied in part upon the fact that General Mills and its predecessor have spent time, energy, and money in promoting and policing the use of the term monopoly. Even if 1/3 of the members of the public who purchased the game did so because they liked Parker Brothers products, that fact does not show that monopoly is primarily source indicating. The very survey on which the district court placed emphasis by italicizing its results shows that 2/3 of the members of the public who purchased the game wanted Monopoly and did not care who made it. What they are proposing is that board games should work like prescription drugs, where you get a 20-year patent to sell your game, and then after that, anyone can make a generic copy of your title that they can also start selling. By their logic, Coup has another 7 years.
Insert the fentanyl joke here.
Before I can just release my hit new game Regime Change, and there's not a dang thing they can do about it. To us, the evidence overwhelmingly shows that they very successfully promoted the game of Monopoly. But in doing it, they so successfully promoted Monopoly as the name of the game that it became generic in the sense that we use that term in trademark law. What they are saying here is that since the word monopoly is a standard English word that is just used on the daily, that it should not be able to be trademarked like this in terms of the title of a board game. Here is the following list of other games that would lose their trademark for using common English words based on their precedent. Risk, Battleship, Clue, Sorry, Careers, Pandemic, Talisman, Coup, Pit, Splendor, Masterpiece, Trouble, Wingspan, Operation Perfection, Mousetrap, and any other game where a common word is what makes up the title. Interestingly enough, I believe Twister might probably be fine here as the game has nothing to do with a tornado. Finally, we enter a whole new level when we reach what the appeals court describes as the most important information for their decision, the conducted surveys. Oh good.
Actually, no, I don't remember
And
what I was
they've
about to say.
inspired so much confidence in their decision making thus far. First survey, the brand name survey. General Mills conducted a survey where they asked people whether they considered Monopoly to be a brand name or a common name. Brand name being something like Chevrolet, and common name being something like automobile. Okay, this could be interesting. This would get directly into the consumer's mind to see whether they see the title as generic or not. Let's see what the results say. Oh, sorry, we don't have the results, because the appeals court said the results of this survey had no relevance to the question in this case.
Never mind then.
No relevance. That's exactly what you were looking for! You told them to go out, locate the correct genericness finding, they ask people as to whether they see the game as generic, and when they come back you say, this isn't what I wanted, then why did you ask for it? Under the survey definition, Monopoly would have to be a brand name because it is made by only one company. Yeah, welcome to how a brand works. You telling me only Ford makes Ford cars? Why hasn't anyone else tried that? Second survey. Anti-Monopoly survey this time, people were asked, are you familiar with business board games of the kind in which players buy, sell, mortgage, and trade city streets, utilities, and railroads, build houses, collect rents, and win by bankrupting all other players, or not? About 53% said that they were, and those people were then asked, if you were going to buy this kind of game, what would you ask for? That is, what would you tell the sales clerk that you wanted? About 80% of them said Monopoly. What the heck game were the other 20% thinking of? Okay, it's a board game.
The Landlord's Game, duh!
buy properties, you buy railroads, you build houses, you can mortgage properties. You ever heard of this before? Oh yeah, dude, I love backgammon. The appeals court says that this works for the case, partially because they've got money on the anti-monopoly money line, and partially because we think that the results of this survey are compelling evidence of a proposition that is also dictated by common sense. An overwhelming portion of those who are familiar with the game would ask for it by the name Monopoly. Dude, they remembered the name of a product they enjoyed? Can't be having that. Third survey, the motivation survey. Remember the anti-monopoly survey that was thrown out of the last court due to the slight issue of it being overwhelmingly prone to errors of subjective grading? Yeah, they allowed that back in as evidence because... Fourth survey, the Tide survey. General Mills submits a survey from Tide, where people were asked if they primarily buy Tide because they like the Tide detergent or because they liked Procter & Gamble's products, with 68% saying that they bought it because they liked the detergent. You may have recognized that this question is almost exactly the same as the anti-monopoly survey that was just admitted, where they asked, did you buy Monopoly due to liking the product or because you like Parker Brothers products? The appeals court didn't think so, saying that the results in the Tide survey are of no relevance to this case. Surely, they must have a dang good explanation for this one, because I'm about to call for an investigation. Quote, there were various respects in which the survey was different from the motivation survey used by anti-monopoly, but we shall not suddenly attach great importance to technical considerations. Oh yeah, there are tons of reasons why this one is different than the other one, but we're just so busy that we couldn't possibly take the time to explain them. Just take our word for it, bro. They better be glad that a jury trial wasn't given. If we had fans in the stands for this, they'd be throwing beer bottles on the court like we're in gosh dang Cleveland. And after our honorable Judge Yapper finally wraps up his spree, we are finally able to hear the final verdict. We hold that finding 2 is clearly erroneous because, although there is some evidence to support it, our examination of the evidence leaves us with the definite and firm conviction that a mistake has been committed. We hold that, as applied to a board game, the word Monopoly has become generic, and the registration of it as a trademark is no longer valid. We freaking won? Parker Brothers has just lost not only the...
What just happened? Yeah. What do I get from drawing while I'm reacting, I swear? Oh, who am I kidding? It's anti-monopoly. I wouldn't have understood regardless.
Suit not only all the money in attorney fees, but also their entire right to the Monopoly trademark altogether. And the worst part is, I can't even be happy about it because I just witnessed the biggest instance of ref ball I've ever seen in my life. What the heck was that? My guy got into his judge chair and made a call so bogus, even the opposing team went, ooh, that's bad. Again, I am not a lawyer, so I could be missing something here, but it's gotta mean something that after reading and rereading these cases for hours, every time the district court explained their findings, I went, oh yeah, okay, I can see where they're coming from there. And every time the appeals court explained their stuff, I'm frozen from reading the dumbest sentence I've ever seen in my life. Parker Brothers got hit by the biggest screw job I've seen in all my days, and I'm just standing on the sidelines shouting, ref, please, throw the flag, my guy's getting murdered out there. But there will be no flag. There will never be a flag. The ref's already thinking about Cancun. I honestly believe that what happened is that the appeals court got so butthurt from the district court pointing out their garbage in the third case that they went, oh, you're taking shots at me? You're talking noise at me? You're shaking my bag of cats, lil bro? Well, guess what? I'm revoking your decision. Parker Brothers, your trademark's no longer valid. Hee-haw. As a result of this win, Anti-Monopoly is now able to properly return to producing and selling their game. And as a hilarious bonus, Parker Brothers also needs to reimburse Ralph for every copy of the game they destroyed in that little celebratory extinction event that they hosted. Good! Remember kids, never start showboating until the game is over. But that little mishap is far from the biggest problem Parker Brothers is worried about right now. You see, with no trademark on Monopoly, anyone is now able to make and sell their own version of the game, turning Monopoly into a chess title that will absolutely kill the company.
I mean, is this really a problem if even Parker Brothers tends to make licensed copies of Monopoly? I don't know, this entire case just makes no sense to me.
So what do you do when you think the court has screwed you over? Why, you appeal, of course! And with no appeal courts left above this one, there is only one place left that this case can go. Straight to the Supreme Court of the United States of America. Tensions are high. This is the last chance for both parties, both with everything on the line. The highest court in the country about to hear the case for what could decide the future of trademark validity in America as a whole. Let's go now to the Supreme Court cam to see their first reaction. What is this? Board game crap? I don't have time for this. Just go with whatever the last guy said. They outright refused to hear the case. Parker Brothers has permanently lost. There is nothing they can do about it.
The makers of the popular board game Monopoly today drew a chance card and lost, for real. They didn't go to jail, they didn't pass go, but lost their monopoly on Monopoly.
Quite a few Monopoly has.
This is the weirdest victory I've ever fucking heard. I mean, I was siding with the professor at first, but now I'm starting to worry about the court system.
Lost its monopoly on Monopoly stories were printed that next week, and our beloved professor could finally rest easy knowing that his legal troubles were over. But quite a few people were concerned as to what this ruling meant for other trademarks across the US. Parker Brothers has maintained that such an interpretation of the law could have a devastating economic impact on companies. But Robin Rolfe, executive director of the United States Trademark Association, said it is still too early to see what the real impact will be. Perhaps it will have no impact. That would be our greatest hope. Now, you might be sitting there thinking that, wow, that guy was right. Generic monopolies haven't flooded the market, and companies still carry on like normal with their trademarks. What gives? Well, those execs across the nation were shaking and quaking in their boots for what this could do to their bottom line.
Oh, hey, Alex. I'm currently watching the Cam Sandwich's video on anti-monopoly. I have no idea what's going on. And, actually, I don't think he knows what's going on either. This is a very weird story. That's fine. Your well-being is more important than a stream. And it's anti-monopoly, actually. I have no idea what the hell's going on, and I don't think anyone else does.
line until they remembered their oldest and greatest tool that they could use to protect corporate interests. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for another exciting round of Money in Politics! Get some every time. Recognizing that spending a ton of money now is better than losing all future money forever, Parker Brothers rounded up some of its corporate pals and began lobbying like there's no tomorrow. And I kid you not, it took them the sum total of 8 months in order to get the Trademark Clarification Act of 1983 read by the Senate. Good, glad that we can act clearly and quickly on the things that actually matter. It took approximately a year to get it through the congressional system, but it made it through there nonetheless. And with all of their hard work, the Lanham Act was amended in 1984, making it so a registered trademark has not become generic and therefore cancelable solely because such mark is also used as a name of or to identify a unique product or service. Makes the primary significance of the mark to the relevant public rather than purchaser motivation the test for whether or not the mark has become generic. In short, it means that in order for the trademark to be lost, it would need to follow the same path as, say, air fryer, which was a trademarked product name until it became used to describe any type of these air frying devices. Other examples of names that use.
So, yeah, classic. Why bother with the court systems when you could literally just change the law yourself? Gotta enjoy those self-destruct buttons. No, that's not actually what occurred. Monopoly was used to... Okay, so what happened was Monopoly, he stole the patent from... Monopoly ultimately filed the patent for their own Monopoly game, which was its own deviation from a game called the Landlord's Game. Then Anti-Monopoly was a game that parodied the name for Monopoly in order to trust bust. And yeah, it also it was basically a Monopoly-like that was its own thing. And then Parker Brothers sued and somehow managed to lose it through an entire overly complicated story and dubious means. And now we got to the part where Parker Brothers just lobbied to get the name, just to change the law and rig it to their own favor. In other words, who the fuck knows anymore? This entire fucking case is a shit show. But to answer your question, no, Parker Brothers didn't steal from Anti-Monopoly to make Monopoly. Everyone here is just fucking weird. Don't blame you for coming to that conclusion, though. I had to message someone. Anyways.
Used to be trademark include Flip Phone by Motorola, Aspirin, which Bayer still has in some countries, and heroin? Somebody once had a trademark on heroin? Oh, let's see.
Wow, that is an odd footnote in American history. I don't know what this story is anymore.
Heroin is a lot better, but Great Value's hotshot juice is cheaper. This set of rules does make a lot more sense than whatever the heck that last judge was spouting off, but it is unfortunate that they got to this by bribing their way into it. And as a result, Parker Brothers has officially...
So this is basically the rare instance of everyone kind of sucking here. Even when like I said before, even if he wins, Parker Brother wins.
Regained control of the Monopoly trademark. Whew, that was a close one. But now that we got that taken care of, we should be able to keep this company up and running for quite some time. Now, this is not the end of the story, but it is the end of my collection of court documents and congressional announcements. So from here on out, we are going to be dealing with tons of contrasting reports and timeline gaps that make it pretty hard to pin down the truth. Heck, that documentary from earlier straight up said that Ralph appealed to the Supreme Court and they ruled in favor of him, which A, Ralph had already won at that point, and B, the Supreme Court never even heard the case. As a result, this section's gonna...
Yeah. That's genuinely how confusing this story is. And why I don't blame you for coming to that conclusion.
Be a lot more hazy than the rest, but there is still a lot to unpack. First, with Monopoly now back in control of its own trademark, this once again opens the door to possible legal trouble with anti-monopoly. Hooray. But after everything they had already been through, both sides were kind of just like, do you want to go back in there? No. Do you? Heck no! And decided to settle out of court. The
Honestly, good idea.
Details are a little fuzzy. Some say that anti-monopoly was excluded from the Monopoly trademark and could still sell the game without issue. Others say that Ralph sold the rights to them but kept the rights to his other game. All that we know for sure is that at some point between 1984 and 1991, Ralph would sell the rights to anti-monopoly to Parker Brothers, who then licensed the game back to him to be sold on the market. This little alliance would continue seamlessly and without issue all the way up until it didn't anymore. Shocker, I know. More on that later. Another interesting thing that happened during this time period was another little game released by the name of Gay Monopoly. A title that we've looked at prior that dropped in 1983 before getting atomized in a lawsuit by Parker Brothers. I found this timing interesting as how was Anti-Monopoly able to win their suit against Parker Brothers while Gay Monopoly got obliterated? And what I was able to come up with was that Gay Monopoly was under fire for a completely different reason: copyright infringement. See, Anti-Monopoly was in violation of the trademark.
So, wonder why they didn't just go that direction. Probably would have saved everyone a lot of legal headaches.
It used the word monopoly not to say that it was anti the board game, it was anti the general economic concept of a monopoly. That word just happened to be under trademark when used as the title of a board game. Gay monopoly, meanwhile, is not referring to a homosexual company that controls the market and barriers to entry. It is referring to a homosexual version of the Parker Brothers board game, which was done without the permission of the company, which is why they got eviscerated in the lawsuit. This also adds another layer to the gay monopoly lore, as when you look at the details of the game and the timing of its release, something really fishy starts to take shape. You see, the Monopoly trademark was finally found to be void in February of '83. This makes nationwide news, and everyone is quite shocked by this. Mysteriously, before the end of that same year, a title by the name of Gay Monopoly would release, claiming to be a celebration of gay life. Despite having quite a lot of effort poured into it, the game does contain errors in its trivia and effect cards, the scaling of its property prices, and in one case, an entire property not having a price at all, giving the impression that it was partially rushed. Additionally, despite containing many mechanics that separate it from the Parker Brothers game, it still chooses to use Monopoly in the title, which opens it up to the legal trouble that kills the game. Well, with all of this background information about what was happening to Monopoly at the time, I think I do now have an answer for all these questions. As I think that Gay Monopoly's main purpose was to allow Fire Island Games to capitalize off of Monopoly losing its trademark by releasing a game that would catch the attention of the public, not realizing that while Parker had lost the trademark, they still had the copyright. This series of events answers so many of those questions. Why did it release in this time period? Because Monopoly's trademark was removed. Why does it contain so many blatant errors? Because its rushed production meant that it couldn't do proper quality control. And the big one, why did they use Monopoly in the title knowing that Parker Brothers would absolutely seek legal action? Because they thought that they could get away with it now that the trademark was invalid. This makes the whole thing even worse because...
Ah, thank goodness. A straightforward answer. I kind of needed that after the anti-monopoly story.
Now we know for sure that if they would have changed the name, they would have been fine, because Parker Brothers didn't even have a trademark at that point. There was literally only one single way that they could have gotten into legal trouble, and they smacked that sucker into right field for Parker Brothers' easiest pop fly of their life. What Gay Monopoly did here was basically watch the patent for Claritin expire, put out a drug called Claritin 2, and then immediately get sent to the Shadow Realm for copyright infringement. Actively impressed that they managed to screw up the only point where they could have gotten away with this with no repercussions. All they had to do was walk in a straight line, and they managed to trip, fall, and die. And that should bring to a close the complete...
Yeah, that sounds about right.
saga and impact of anti-monopoly. At least, anti-monopoly 1. You heard that right, folks. It's Anti-Monopoly 2! Complete with its own entirely separate game, entirely separate issues, and entirely separate lawsuit against everyone's favorite board game buddy, the Hasbro Corporation. However, that will need to be a story for the next video to tell, as unless I split this up, there will be no uploads for over a month, and I will be the next one declaring bankruptcy. So until I see you there, keep in mind the Parker Brothers, and always remember to never put yourself in a situation where one bad call can lose you the game. Signing off for Remembering to Tip Your Senator, I am Cam Sandwich. Thank you for watching and have a fantastic day. A special thank you to my suppliers, staff, and chefs over at the deli, as well as the media preservers helping me get these rare games ported for the public to enjoy. If you'd like to join the crew, you can take a look using the link in the description below.
yeah, that was anti-monopoly. I don't know what happened either. Well, gonna go ahead and listen to some music for a good while since I need to figure out how the PNG Tube Remix software works, so we will go over the anti-monopoly betrayal video a bit later. Okay. Game. Yeah. Yeah, I think. Alright, let's see what the. Have to color that. Oops. Gonna be a bit. Is that ever stop me? Yeah. Yes. Oh. Shot. Yeah, this seems like this is just making my adorable eyes with extra steps. That's only because it is. Yeah, sorry, I had to grab them. Anyway. Yeah, sorry guys. First die. I think so. Alright. Duplicating this one. Boom. Could be wrong. And select it. Yeah, by map. What? Thanks too while we're at it. There we go. Okay. Well, I think that was a good stopping point for the time being. I gotta research how mouths work, so that's probably gonna take up a lot of time. I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight, and I will see you all next time. Hopefully, eventually, I'll get this done. Take care, everyone.